Ladies and gentlemen, selamat sejahtera dan selamat sepupu. A bit of an interesting show today. We have here something a little bit different. We have here Mr. Vinodh Rajendran from the Goodcast Show. We have Mr. MJ right here from f.i.r.l. We are right here in his lovely studio. And thank you so much for being here, guys. Bit of a special thing here. So
go ahead.
We're going to be doing a tier list.
Fantastic. Let's rate our prime ministers.
Yeah. All right. So, Sepupus, we all know that there are good prime ministers. There are prime ministers which maybe you don't like so much. But today, we're going to be doing a bit of a prime minister tier list.
Has it ever been done before? I'm just curious.
In Malaysia?
I've not seen it.
You've not seen it?
I've not seen it.
Oh.
Has it been done?
In Malaysia?
Yeah.
No.
All right, there we go.
It's actually been done before, yeah.
Malaysia Book of Records, contact us.
Yeah.
We'll be sharing our emails. Call Victor.
There you go. Great. Anyway, today we're going to be doing a bit of a tier list. As you can see on the screen right here, we have, well, all of the different prime ministers of Malaysia. And you can probably recognize some sorts of familiar faces right
I better
here.
recognize
All of them. I was just thinking the same thing. I was like, I don't know who this guy is. I mean, he was only there for 22 years and came back again.
That is, I don't know, like Vijayan Pinarayi.
That must be the guy. Yeah, that's it.
No. Anyways, we have right here a whole tier list from S, A, B, C, down to D.
Okay.
I'm sure that some of you would want maybe like a G grade type thing right here.
Oh,
but
we are grading them as well. Oh, this just got harder.
We are indeed grading them.
So S is for super?
S is for super.
Okay.
A is for amazing. B
that
is
is
for
tough.
bazinga. C is for what is C for?
So many words coming to mind, but words I cannot utter.
No.
Some people like an in between, so like a SA or a AB or
Wow.
All right. Or an A minus, keeping up with current discussion points.
Oh wow. That's how you're going to get into matriculation. Man.
Exactly. With A minus
All
now
right,
you can.
cool. Anyway, so we're going to be doing this tier list classification here, which is going to be fun for those of you out there as well.
Yeah.
There is going to be a live tier list voting link that you can actually go on and you can do a bit of a community ranking.
Thank you.
To, figure out which prime minister belongs where, who is the best. Is PMX at the S tier the finest prime minister that we've ever had in the entirety of history? All right.
No, I just think this list was very difficult for me to do. For one reason is that at this age, being, once you're more exposed to Malaysian politics and the history of it, right, there's so many, while they may have done some good or they have done good, there's an equal amount of negative impact to their policies and what they have done. So I was like, how do I rate this guy?
Specific person in mind. Very specific.
Very specific. And so when I was doing my research, I said, oh man, all of them had some issues, right? So I don't know. There is basically, I want to say this, every prime minister has a good, bad and ugly, basically. But one thing in my list, I don't know whether we're doing it, I don't know if we're doing it individually or together, but in my list, I did not include him. PMX.
Ooh.
Not because of any other reason.
Too early.
Yeah, you're right. Too early. 2 years is too early.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. A bit of a fun discussion here because, of course, when we think about like prime ministers, there are so many different factors that you could discuss, right?
Yeah.
Like on your part, like you say that like Anwar doesn't appeal because together
with Ismail Sabri. I did not include them both. Because about 18 months, I think Ismail Sabri was?
Yeah. Very, very short.
Yeah, he was a caretaker.
More like a transitional kind of thing, right? I didn't include him.
Yeah.
But no offense to them. I mean, none of them, like I said, it's not because of any other reason, but if they were there longer, I think we could evaluate them better. That's how I feel. I don't know.
Okay. Sure. There's so many different ways that you could evaluate a person. Of course, if you have your own standards for what is valid to evaluate, that also works. But and I'm gonna go right ahead and give MJ here like an aneurysm.
Okay, I can see it coming. I can see the
because,
veins popping.
Because MJ here is an investor, and those of you who have watched f.i.r.l, you probably know, and you probably know also about his book, which is called
100K by 30.
100K by 30. That's right.
the title is misleading, but you know, I need to get the
Clearly it's 100
Clickbait,
million.
clickbait.
I need to get the clickbait.
All right, but no, like, you know, if we were to just rank the prime ministers right now by economic performance, by real GDP growth, we have a 10.4% average GDP growth for Tun Razak right here. He goes right at the top. And then we have also our good old Hussein who is, 8.5%. And this gentleman right here goes like in A. And now we have like all of these other losers like Mahathir. No.
Oh my goodness, man. Calm down, dude.
We have all these other gentlemen right here kind of appearing. And you can see, by the way, like 2 Mahathirs, so like 1 for each administration. So then like, like right over here. I don't know, like...
So what was his growth rate? I'm just curious.
Mahathir's average growth rate during his first administration, 6.1%.
6.1%.
6.1%. Kind of an interesting thing right here. But so we're dealing with these numbers here. What do you think, Mr. Investor?
You know, the thing is, it's very hard for me to rank 3 of them. And I'm not trying to cop out, I'm just trying to explain why, right?
Yeah.
You know, Malaysia is a trade-dependent country. I think to date, we are 70% of exports are about 70% of the economy. I'm not sure back then what it was, but I assume it's something very similar. And all 3 of them came into power at the period where the global situation was pretty much, guys, let's just have relative peace and let's just trade with each other, right? Compared to the world, let's say like today.
Which is way more globalized.
Yeah. No, but as in like today where we want to kind of reverse that, you know, led by the US to put up trade barriers and things like that. But back then, trade barriers were, you know, falling. And you also can argue that, like, okay, Razak is number 1, but Razak started at rock bottom.
Rock bottom. So everything was the way up.
Yeah, you have the low base effect. So using GDP growth, for me, it's a little bit difficult.
And also just one point to build on that, I think China was not the country it is today as it was during Razak's time, because they are basically conquering everything and investing everywhere as well. So it was a very different regional climate as well.
Yes, exactly right. So that's why it's very hard. But I would say I would still rank probably accurately in this order as well, but for different reasons. I mean, Razak, because he had to solve the whole social issue, right? In fact, as a general one, I put Razak as number 1. I don't know if it's S. I don't know if you've ever had an S tier prime minister, but he.
By the way, S means
1.
Super. You just want to get that out of the way. It's a super.
No, S is there's another term for S, right? It's not,
Sensational.
no, there's
Stupendous.
No, I think it's Saitama. You don't know One Punch Man? I think so.
Yeah? Oh, really? Is that what it is?
Saitama tier,
Oh,
if I'm not
okay.
mistaken. But basically, it's right on top. So again, I don't know whether there's a single S tier prime minister, but I think Razak's number 1 because of the contributions, you know, that period, right, in the 60s and 70s.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, if we think about it, not just, Najib's father, like, the man did stabilize the country right after the May 13 riots, and he did create Barisan National and also, brought about a whole bunch of, like, different things. Like so, the NOC, you know, like, a whole lot of other things as well.
Yeah, and I just want to, I don't want to talk too much, but I just want to touch on just a little bit for the other 2 so that I can pass on the discussion. The tough part for me with B and A is, you know, I have a bias towards politicians who are not known for much because that's a good thing. So someone like Hussein at least based on my very cursory research, he's not known for much, right? When you think Malaysian Prime Ministers, he's, you know, he's Hishamuddin's relative, you know.
Dato' On's son.
But the reason why I can't rank him higher than Tun Razak is because I think a lot of what he did was just building on the momentum of the previous prime minister. But you should also give credit to him for just allowing the momentum to go, because many prime ministers, when they come in, they have this idea that they want to make a mark, right? They want to do something different to stand out, and he didn't quite do that. So credit needs to be given to that, because when you're in power, you kind of want to build your own statues, right? But at the same time, of course, Mahathir is Mahathir, right? And if you just look at him on his achievements alone, you know, he could be alongside Razak, but it's all the other reverse achievements, you know.
I think for me, I would put the number one, tough call to make, but I would say it would be Mahathir for me, the number one. A very close second would be Najib. Najib, because
right.
because and I'll explain that later. But so yeah, so we have tier, so he'll be A. And why I say this because again, it's very hard for me to comment because there's so many negatives that sort of stained each of them, right? We know in terms of Najib, it was the 1MDB. We know in terms of Mahathir was his very racial policies that he sort of enacted and he championed even, which I think is something that will come back to bite us very, very soon. Because you can't have a country that is not operating on all cylinders in the coming decades. I think the world is changing. We're talking about a globalized economy. Borders are going missing now. So it's different. But anyway, Mahathir, I think when he did the whole privatization, it was a good thing. When he, his mega projects, although people were against it, I was for it because I think, we were against KLIA, but now we have KLIA too. The North-South Highway was so important because it awakened all these sleepy hollows which were there. And then what people don't understand is a road is not just a road. It's there to promote connectivity and also to spur the economic performance of the other areas, not just localized, right? And on that note,
just want to add, actually,
go ahead.
Just to build on your point, because the North-South Highway, I mean, we all use it every day and it's so useful, right? But less known is actually in the 90s, Mahathir already ordered to build fiber optic cables below the North-South Highway. The old name for the company, I believe, was Time Engineering. Today is Time.com. So I think he sunk in like 5 billion when it wasn't feasible to use fiber optics yet. So people saw it as a waste of money and people wrote off the investments. But of course today,
wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. It's
and he's always been like that, right? I think another case to support that is when Tony Fernandes went to meet him, talking about AirAsia, he had already said that he suggested Mars to create another low-cost carrier, but they just refused to. So he's always been ahead of his time in that sense. I think even the way he handled the 98 financial crisis was another example. He's done a lot, I think, in terms of making us a spectacle. Twin Towers, people may condemn it, but it was one of those developments that sort of put us on the map. Yeah. Then you talk about Smart Tunnel. Smart Tunnel was, I think, towards the end of him. I think Smart Tunnel was towards the end of his, or was it in Najib's time? I can't remember. But these sort of mega projects were there, and I think it really helped put Malaysia on the map. Najib, on the other hand, a lot of people focus on 1MDB, but they don't focus on the economic transformation program that he had. That was the key for me. I think Najib is one of those prime ministers who I like to call, I think, for a lack of a better word, I think he was a complete and utter fool because if he had not done the 1MDB, he would have gone down as the greatest prime minister of our country. The economic, he wanted to make Malaysia a high-income economy. Why is that important? Is because if you look now, we are facing the problems there now. 26% of Malaysian SMEs contribute to tax. Our percentage of tax contributions on the personal level is still lower. It's not at a good rate. So that is why now Anoa is forced to do SST. He's forced to implement all taxes because we are not making enough revenue from the people. And he wanted to make us into a foreign investment hub. That's why he built TRX. That's why all the mega projects, if you notice all this f.i.r.l, the Pan-Borneo Highway, all of this were made to improve connectivity, which is what Japan is doing and have done very well. Japan have decentralized their population. So now you have, this sort of colonies, if you will, or groups of population everywhere. Imagine if that whole high-speed railway had happened from Malaysia to Singapore. Now workers from different parts of Malaysia have access to Singapore, which they never had before. So you're boosting your income levels, and he also introduced GST, which is a fantastic tax, right? Anyone will tell you it's better than SST. It's more broad. It increases the revenue of the country, and he did it because he wanted to reduce the reliance on oil and gas, which is fantastic. Which is now we are suffering because we look at the war happening the Iran war may help us out because it may increase crude oil, so good for us. But then, at the end of it, we see now soon we are going to become a whole net importer of LNG soon. So these guys, I think, there's more examples. Like, for example, even in energy, he wanted to create 2 nuclear power plants by 2030. This is someone who's moving, and I love leaders who have a vision. Let's go, let's change things. So I think these 2 guys for me would be number 1, number 2.
I think more buried. I'm not sure whether he chucked it aside. He wanted to reduce the Bumiputra equity from 30 to 12.5%.
Oh, really?
Yeah, maybe I just saw it on Wiki, so I just need to clarify this. So if true, that's another step that...
A positive step. Yeah, positive step. Yeah, he understood that.
It's interesting that you mentioned Wiki because like coincidentally, so I found this page just the other day. Najib Raza is the only person who has a Wikipedia page literally called The Economic Policy of the Najib Raza Government, which is interesting. I mean, like, you can actually look at all of that. I don't know, like, we can actually search up MJ's 12.5.
There.
There you go. Great. So lowering the minimum quota for Malay
30 to
ownership
12.5.
from 30% to 12.5%. Yeah, like that was like basically the Industrial Coordination Act, which you might remember from like understanding like
And
NAP.
if I'm not mistaken, under his time was when he launched Pemandu as well,
Yes,
which was
Pemandu.
headed by
Idris Jala. Yeah.
And a lot of people sort of half criticized Idris for not helping Malaysia achieve high income status. But he said that if the currency remained the same, actually we did achieve high income status.
Oh yeah.
That's what he argued, right?
I was actually at that session, you know, like because it was a World Bank session, and as I recall, so Mr. Indermit Gill, who interestingly enough is actually my university senior, so he came over to Malaysia and he delivered that panel session alongside I think like Nurul Izzah and like Liu Shin Tong and like it was an interesting session for sure. So like thank you for your perspectives, which is I mean like it's very interesting of course. You know, like when we think really about like where all of these people kind of like belong, you know, like there are so many different types of opinions right there. And now here's the second surprise I'm about to show to all of you at the moment. So now, I know that right at the moment we have this live poll, which again, you can go ahead and access like down in the description below. So we actually did this poll right here another time at a different era. And here we are. Now, Malaysian Prime Ministers, 98 people voted, 439 votes. 30% of the votes were for the following three individuals. You have Tunku Abdul Rahman, Mahathir first term, Razak. Wow, Razak is popular, and there we have it. Anwar at A, fitting the name. Najib at A. As it turns out, a lot of people actually seem to agree with you, even against the...
I didn't see this, by the way. I speak what the people want.
It's the kind of like conventional wisdom, so to speak. Then there is Allahyarham Tun Abdullah Badawi right here, Hussein On. Mahathir in second term, which is interesting. I think it was you who interviewed Roman Bose, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
So, like,
not me, my
right, yeah, John.
my team. Yeah.
Right. And then here you have down at the bottom right here, Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, and we have Ismail Sabri. Wow. I mean, like...
In this one, I just want to say, I actually rate Badawi higher than this. And in fact, I think I wouldn't include Mahathir, the second term Mahathir, in any of this because, again, it was too short a period. And at that time, he was traveling a lot. And politics at that time was mostly focused on when will he surrender the reins to Anwar, right?
Right.
But I think Badawi is another good example of a prime minister who could have achieved way more if he was given the time to do it. And I think he was backstabbed or undermined by his party, and I think because he wanted to bring reform, his concepts of Islam Hadari was a fantastic concept. He wanted to promote modernization, progressive thinking. I like that focus on science and technology. He wanted to decentralize development, so he had the Northern Corridor, Johor, Iskandar, Sabah, Sarawak, and all that. So he wanted to decentralize development, and I think he had a good plan. But just one more point. When you see these prime ministers, right, one thing that separates them, you can see a clear demarcation. There are two groups. There's one group that has an international focus. That will be Najib, even Anwar, and all that. But and even Tun M. But the rest of them, I feel, are very inward in their focus. They focus on local market, domestic market, and all that, as opposed to
Yeah. And it's
and I have my issues with Tunku Abdul Rahman as well, so that's why I did not include in my list.
For sure, yeah. They're all very interesting figures. I mean, like you have the father of independence, and then you have like, of course, his later successor, and then you have like Tun Razak along the way. I mean, like, but it's interesting also, like when you start reading into history, like you start realizing maybe like all these kinds of interesting patterns kind of thing. Like you start realizing that maybe like these people were not completely, like the superheroes that like we might think that they are, which is interesting. I mean, like, even if we look at, for example, Tunku Abdul Rahman, and here actually I want to like dovetail into a bit this idea that maybe like leaders, they are not really perfect. I mean, like, you could say that, well, Tunku Abdul Rahman was, yes, father of independence. He's appeared in all of those pictures right there. But you could say also, and this is something that was noted, right, in things like, well, Mahathir's memoirs, he talks about how maybe Tunku Abdul Rahman had lost the Malay pulse, for example. And then if we were to look at Mahathir, then like it could be that you think about how, well, maybe he had criticized his successor. We may remember that, well, Badawi was his immediate successor, and then
the whole Surah Layang and all that.
Yeah. And then like with the whole crooked bridge thing, like, and maintaining that thread right there, then there was a break between Badawi and Mahathir, and then later on, then he was criticized, and some people argue that that was also a part of the downfall.
But I think it's also the problem with Tunku Abdul Rahman. What I know, a lot of people consider him as the Bapak Kemerdekaan, and yes, he was the one who sort of spoke about. He was the one sort of brokered the whole independence, right, from the British to us.
Sure.
But if you read books like The Narrative of Pyramid, which is a story about what happened to the communists right after the British left and all that, when they flee to Thailand, they created these friendship villages and all that. And you talk to people who are historians in this field. The problem I have with Tunku Abdul Rahman was I feel he was too appeasing to the British. And what people in Malaysia don't remember or don't talk about was there was an opposing sort of stance of the People's Constitution. We always hear about the Malayan Union. We don't talk about the People's Constitution. The big issue that the opposition to the alliance government at that time was that they wanted independence for Malaysia. They didn't want the British to sort of meddle in our own independence, which at that time, the whole Malay ruling class did not want. They wanted the British to sort of... Do you know that, in fact, after the Japanese left Malaysia, there was a good period where Malaysia was not conquered by anyone. And at that time, the left, which was a socialist, the left that became the Socialist Front, they wanted to take hold of Malaysia. This is my country. I want to take hold of this country. But the ruling elite said, no, let's wait for the British to come back and govern us. So it is these kind of stances that makes me go, maybe. And one thing people don't forget is that he supported the social contract. And while I do see I think you cannot, I think the cat's out of the bag in that case. So you can't go back to change the social contract or anything. You can't do that anymore. It's gone, right? Lost ground is lost forever. But I think that set the wheels in motion for the situation that we have now. So that's why, for me, I did not include him in my list. Not because I have nothing against the man. You can't take away what he did. But although he did support multiculturalism and all that, I think he has his goods and bad. The only point I have against him was that he didn't take charge of the situation. That's what I have issue with him.
I see. Yeah, it's a very interesting and complex story. I mean, like, if we look really at like this legacy here of like every single one of them, really, like you can see different things. I know that we talked a little bit about the bad things, for example, but I mean, and this is an interesting point right here. You can see actually that the community ranked right here Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin as D, and also ranked Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri right here also at D. And a lot of people, when they talk about like, well, Tan Sri Muhyiddin, they talk about like the Jana Wibawa, they talk about like emergency proclamation and a whole bunch of other things like that. And with Ismail Sabri, and actually here, like here's a very interesting sort of counterpoint that it stretches beyond his 6.9 thousand ringgit shirts. I don't know if you've seen those shirts right here, but those are very fire right here. But actually, there is this one report, actually, and we will soon transition into a bit of a discussion right here. Have you seen this report from Bersih? So basically, it is what we call a midterm report card on the unity government by good old Bersih. So this came out a while ago. I don't know. Have you guys seen it?
No, I've not seen it.
You've not seen it. Okay. So basically,
I thought it's SPM.
Actually, yeah.
No, the font and it's all the same.
Yeah.
A lot of flashbacks.
Exactly.
Wow, like trauma right here from MJ.
Yeah, me too. I share the same trauma.
So it's interesting. I mean, like, you guys can definitely check it out. I'll also put a link to it so you can actually look at what it says. But for those of you who don't know, Bersih was that one NGO coalition for free and fair elections right here with a whole list of different demands, like, for example, usage of, indelible ink for the electoral roll and so on and so forth, before it eventually ended up getting co-opted by politicians left, right, front and center, like pretty much almost any NGO movement. But anyway, it's so interesting development right here. So it goes right ahead and it assigns, and this is relevant right here, it assigns Anwar Ibrahim a D grade right away, saying that, it's because your reforms are not fast enough.
This point annoys me with Malaysians. Seriously, it's so silly.
Well, here we have it. It basically says right over here that, they assign essentially a D grade to Anwar Ibrahim. But the more interesting point that I want to raise right here is that they actually assign Ismail Sabri an A grade. Well, not necessarily an A grade, but like they basically said that he's one of the very best because he had a very limited amount of time, but he managed to accelerate reforms much faster than, for example, Anwar Ibrahim. And as a result, they say that, he has done well.
But what do they have in mind? Like when they
exactly.
Just one. I'm sure they have like a dozen, but what's the big one that they say Anwar's too slow on and Ismail Sabri's pretty quick?
Well, I mean, like, it's a whole report. So, like, you've got...
I think one of the things could be that Ismail Sabri was the one who approved equal allocations for MPs from both sides, right? Opposition and government. I think that was the one thing that the sort of hero message of his time, I think.
Yeah. So, like, you've got comparisons, really, between, like, Ismail Sabri, Muhyiddin Yassin, Mahathir, and Najib. And you can see actually like PMX versus Ismail Sabri Yaakob talking about the signing of an MOU with the opposition that led to passing of what we call the anti-hopping law, implementation of Undi 18, automatic voter registration, and a whole bunch of other things. Of course, now when we think about Ismail Sabri, we might think about like the whole 170 million ringgit corruption scandal. So maybe that's been sort of like papered over. But yeah, like any sort of like initial thoughts?
Like I said, I would need to know why have they judged Anwar first so early, right? And the second thing is, what is the key thing that annoys them about?
Just to chime in on this, and why I said earlier that this is something that really annoys me when people say that, Anwar and reforms, right? People need to have a more practical view on politics, right? There are many branches or layers in politics in Malaysia that people don't take into account. For instance, civil society. The entire civil structure of our government workforce, right, is layered. Like, for instance, it is not easy for a minister or even a prime minister to enact changes quickly because you have multiple layers of civil service people who may not support or may not be on the same boat as you. Because we don't live in a communist or an authoritarian country, right? We don't. Another thing that so I think that should be taken into account. Another thing is that if you look at all the prime ministers above, right, and Anwar, there's one big difference. All of them operated in either a 2/3 majority or a simple majority. Anwar does not. Anwar does not have the mandate. Right? So he's operating within a coalition of convenience, and so that makes things harder because he has to cater to BN, he has to cater to all the component parties within, especially Sabah Sarawak, who are the kingmakers of Malaysian politics, right? He has to cater to all of that. So for him, it's not as easy as, okay, if we are giving him a D, because he has 2/3 and he not done any reforms, that's fair. But this is not fair. And the problem with Bersih is they don't seem to accept this. Oh, no, reforms must be done tomorrow. I go to government today, I want reforms tomorrow. No, it doesn't work like that. It never worked like that. And you must understand another thing. Anwar is coming into a system that has been there for, 70 years?
Absolutely.
So you can't correct that in 2 days. And one thing you brought up about Tun Razak, when he was Prime Minister, that was after May 13, during May 13 time, right? After that was the NOC was formed. A lot of people don't talk about the fact that when the NOC was formed, it ran for 2 years without parliamentary oversight. So one of the allegations or one of the conspiracies, if you will, is that during that time, they could implement whatever they wanted without any check and balance. So all that legacy has built up until today. Like just the other day, I spoke to the girl, one of the members of the Suara Mahasiswa UMS, who said that, reform, corruption and all this, they blame Madani. I said, but what does corruption have to do with Anoa? That has been there. It's not like corruption started after Madani came into power. It was there since BN time. We had, case in point, the huge scandal of Sapura, of 1MDB and all this kind of stuff, right? So, I mean, I feel it's not fair to grade him now. The only way we can grade him D is if the next elections, the Malaysian people give him a mandate and then we analyze him. That's fair.
I kind of...
I sound like a Anoa supporter now. I just heard myself. I should stop.
Well, I mean...
Resign, Anoa.
Nice one, balance.
Nice one. Just balancing it out.
Yeah. And I'm kind of hearing hints almost of your interview with James Chin just the other day. Basically, James said in his podcast with you, which is excellent, by the way, I think that you should go ahead and watch it. He said that up until now, the Malaysian people have not seen the real Anwar.
Yeah.
We have not seen the real Anwar.
Yeah.
So sorry, just to cut you a bit, but I think my understanding of Anwar is that he may see the real Anwar if he gets a second term, because what I'm hearing from people who are connected to him and are quite powerful, they say that the criticism is that he's not bold. Basically, he's behaving more like Tunku Abdul Rahman rather than a Mahathir. And I think people want that decisiveness of a Mahathir. And you can even throw in Najib there, right? But I can share with you why, without revealing too much, he is behaving the way he is behaving. Now, whether it's right or not is up to people to decide. So I invest in a company that are involved with some sort of concession, right, with the government. And pre-Anwar, the company was, they always got renewed contracts, mainly through closed tenders. Now, with Anwar, he has been saying that he wants to do an open tender, right? But if he does an open tender, he runs the risk of angering the shareholders of this company. And again, I won't mention who they are, but if I mention, you will know the relevance that they have in Malaysia. And so he's at that situation because if, let's say, he does the open tender and he increases the risk that some of these companies lose pretty much their dividends, right? Because a lot of Malaysian government entities are cash-strapped. And so they rely on these concessions to make money. And now you want to increase the risk that they will lose all this. That may anger these entities, and that they may start to influence voter thinking and things like that. So if you're doing it 2 years into your first term, then you are, it's tricky. But I suspect once 2027, is it, or 2028, when we have our election, or 2027, then we may see something change. Or at least that, assuming, like you said, you have the mandate and assuming that he can even get the second term.
I agree. Yeah, right. So his reforms are going to anger people, definitely. But yeah, I don't think it's fair to evaluate him now. I really don't.
Fair. Thank you for that. Now, I think that this is an interesting time, actually, to go into this Anwar Ibrahim question a little bit more, actually. Because I know that you guys all say that, it's not really enough time. You may not have seen, the real Anwar. But if you were to kind of, place maybe, a guess, right? There are a couple of, other things that we could consider as well, right? Things that are not, entirely limited necessarily by, democratic or parliamentary, constraints, for example. You have, of course, and the most pertinent one that people have on their minds is the use of Rother case. And then, of course, then you've got, some other things the perception, whether real or perhaps just, in our eyes, right? That maybe he doesn't take firm enough action. Of course, like he does take like some action to a degree. When it comes to people discriminating, for example, against members of the Indian community, for example, you had, well, the idea of like the Masjid Madani, was it?
Masjid Madani,
yeah. And then like, of course,
the temple was in Jalan Masjid, India, but the masjid they want to build was Masjid Madani, yes.
Masjid Madani, and a whole bunch of like other issues right there, which people think that he should have spoken up more about. But then you've also got this idea almost of, how are you guys with Malay proverbs?
I'm okay with it.
Basic as can be.
Kera di hutan disusukan, anak di rumah kelaparan. Feeding a monkey in the forest while your baby starves at home. Some people say that about Anwar Ibrahim. They say that, well...
Why do they say that?
Well, because he's constantly going out and then trying to advocate, for example, for people in Palestine, which of course is a issue that a lot of people in Malaysia care about. But then also you have, well, efforts to intervene, for example, in India and Pakistan. There was the recent, well, India, Pakistan, I don't want to say war, but more of like skirmishes. Yeah, nice. Exactly. Skirmishes. So then he offered to intervene with Shahbaz Sharif, and that ended up creating a whole bunch of like hoo-ha over the internet. But so when you look
but that on that point, I think we also have to be real about politics here, lah. This is a political game at the end of the day. It's all about which voter group supports you and which does not. Pakistan's big problem has been from the time they were formed is that they have been unable to secure the Malay vote. Right? So obviously the Prime Minister will want to be more, would want to see more involved. And I'm sure he's involved because he sincerely wants to be. And he wants to help and support causes that are tied to Islam and to the interests of the Malays. I think he's wanting to, but he also does make the mistake, the error of sometimes speaking on things that I guess he should not have. You see, like when the India and Pakistan skirmish, as you all say, you are talking about India, you're talking about many other superpowers who are involved. We are just Malaysia. While I am a proud Malaysian, India's GDP is in the trillions. We are, struggling to increase our GDP. So I think he should not have commented on that part. But, the problem is today in modern politics is that the opposition plays every point and they amplify it to 1,000, every point, right? Without even any consideration about the people, the sentiments. I give you one example. If you all saw the recent interview on Keluar Sekejap with Pritam Singh, the head of the opposition.
Singapore.
Man, you saw the gulf of difference between their politician and ours. In fact, there was one part which I thought was fantastic when Pritam said that we as the opposition need to give room for our government to be effective. Do you think Malaysian opposition does that? Hell to the no.
No.
They don't care. They don't care. They just want to fuel this narrative that Madani doesn't care about the people.
Oh yeah,
right?
Sure.
Without any context, they just blurt it out. So in that case, I think because there were some people, I wouldn't say they have the opposition, but some people who did not agree with Madani who brought out this issue of Pakistan saying, the Indians are, hurting the Muslims. They made it a racial thing when it completely wasn't. It was a surgical strike on terrorists, not on Pakistanis, on terrorists, right? So I think sometimes he's guilty of you don't fight every battle, basically. I think he should learn that sometimes. Yeah.
But sure. It's correct, that proverb you give early on, right? Because you mentioned earlier that those that rank high are people who have an outward-looking perspective. I would just add to that they also never forget back home. So whatever you think of the tactics of Najib and Mahathir, both of them had really strong support. Yeah. And why is because, of course, Mahathir is Mr. Malay nationalist, and of course, we have Bosku, right? With his BRIM, with all these social programs. You see prime ministers don't hit the A tier and above when they choose one or the other. So the guys right at the bottom are the ones that pander purely to the locals. So this one is to feed the baby, but not the monkey.
Who cares about the monkey?
Yeah, and Anwar is running the risk of, only feeding the monkey, but not, back home. But of course, it's so early. So
No, but again, on your example just now, you brought about a real example about how he wants to convert to open tenders, not just closed tenders, right? Again, I'm not entirely sure that open tender system is always correct. Like we saw an example of the DRT recently. I think if you don't have, and I think KJ brought up a very good point once. He said that sometimes you cannot go open tender because the companies don't have the qualification, right?
Yes,
so anyway, that's another point.
Only one winner.
One winner, so you have to go with them. And I think in terms of DRT, the company that got it was the company that had the expertise. So let them do it, right? Anyway, that's one point. But I also think that in terms of that point of the opening the tender, I think that's also part of what I think Anoa is trying to do. Because if you notice that in Malaysia, we do suffer from the fact of opportunity hoarding. Right? And that is why you see that the NEP has not necessarily been the success that it should have been, because opportunities are hoarded by certain people. So now in one of his reforms, he's trying to open up things to other Malaysians as well. So which I think is a good thing. But of course, along the way, it's going to be a very treacherous and slippery slope that he has to go through. Yeah.
For sure. Thank you for all of those very insightful thoughts. Now, I thought that maybe what we could do is kind of like go Prime Minister by Prime Minister, and then let's try to see what tier you give them. I know that maybe you haven't really put like Tunku Abdul Rahman on the list. At least before, but for today,
don't single me out.
To be fair, I mean, like, I don't think that you've seen tier maker before either, right?
No, I've seen tier makers, but not
just not that. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, all right. We are breaking new ground.
There we go.
All right, great. So let's go right ahead. So Tunku Abdul Rahman, where we place him, S, A, B, C, D. Let's do it like bit of a fun way right here. Let's do it all simultaneously. 3, 2, 1.
1, 2.
All right.
But okay, can I just say this, because I don't want to sound like he's a Bapa company, but I want to say that I'm rating them on their policies, okay? That's all I'm rating them on. Nothing personal. I love all of them. I think they're all great, but just I want to be safe here. I don't want to end up in Sosma or something tomorrow.
All right. Okay. Tunku Abdul Rahman. 3, 2, 1.
B.
A.
C. Okay. Dude, you jumped the count, man. Like 3, 2, you're B. I'm like, come on.
All right, okay. Let's actually like record this out right here. Let me see. So MJ for Tunku Abdul Rahman. Let's see. Tunku Abdul. Actually, why don't we do it in the form of a table? One sec.
Yeah, you do an Excel sheets.
I don't know how you do this, man. You're crazy, dude. Look at that. You're managing so many things at one go. That's crazy.
That's life. I mean, like, so Tunku, actually, yeah, that should be like second. Okay, hold up. Tunku Abdul Rahman. All right. No, why did you say thank you very much? All right. Tunku Abdul Rahman. Sorry, Sepupus. Like, we have to do this like the slow way. Tun Razak. And then like, want to help me out here?
Hussein on.
Mahathir. One. Okay. And then
Najib.
Abdul.
Badawi, Najib. Okay, sorry. Badawi. Sorry.
Okay.
Bala. Okay,
All right,
Najib.
And then we have Mahathir 2. And then we have Muhyiddin.
Sabri.
Ismail Sabri. And now we have our beloved Anwar Ibrahim. Okay, so VT. And then we have MJ, Vinodh. Okay, so
A, B, C.
A, B, nice. I like that. A, B,
No, I said D.
You said D.
No, C. Did I say C? C. Sorry, my bad. Oh, you say A.
I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Why A?
Nostalgia.
Yeah, I was going to say like just nostalgia, like this idea of wanting to go out and then like actually just having that sort of initiation, I guess, like move forward to bring forward independence. I mean, like, it has to be acknowledged that like there is this sort of like first mover advantage right there, which probably features in my ranking. Like if we remove that, then who knows? Like maybe he could be like a bit lower. But I do appreciate the fact that he negotiated our constitution, and this is just something important for me as well, because, well, he was very clear when he set out the foundation of this country. Like, we could say that maybe he did make some concessions here and there. But he did set out that we are going to be a secular country. We are going to set out this foundation for the country. He maybe didn't do everything perfectly necessarily, but there was a lot of engagement for the future of the country, which I do appreciate. I wouldn't put him at S tier because, well, at the end of the day, he lost, I guess, the Malay ground, and then eventually ended up falling prey, I guess, to a lot of schemes along the way, which made it so that he ended up losing his power. Yeah, but I will admit that my ranking is just partly based on nostalgia and this idea of being that first mover. So,
but I think that part about him losing Malays, I think that was sort of a narrative that was superimposed onto him. I don't think it was right, because if you look at his moves, he was one of the founding members of OIC. He still supported the social contract, which put the Malays in a place of advantage. So I think that one must have been Mahathir or whoever who wanted to take over from him and sort of put that letter. I don't see any credibility in that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so... All right, so this is going to be in our order here. So you've got your EVT.
Good. Oh, so it's not S. Oh, you put A, not S. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
and then MJ would be B.
You can't copy the picture and just put it in the same place, no?
Can you? I don't know.
I don't know, man.
I think you just drag.
Drag, yeah, just drag. Oh wait, no, sorry. I think I put you at A. All right, and then here we have C. Youch. Youch. Okay, great.
You see, it's still
All
passing.
right, now, Tun Razak. All right.
That's a tough one, man. Okay.
All right. Tun Razak. 3, 2, 1, A.
B.
A, B. Oh, nice. Wow, it's almost like a genetic code at the moment. All right, so A, and B. Wow, such a harsh grader. Damn, look
No,
at
you
that.
know why?
Look
Okay.
at that. If this guy's your teacher, then bro, you're in
never
education
passing
industry,
anything.
damn,
That's not for
wow.
me. No, I say why B. He, if you look at NEP if I look at NEP as a non-Malaysian, it is a policy that people will be in awe of, right? How that one government decided to elevate a community, build a middle class, and all that. Fantastic. But if you look at things like FIRL and all these other creations under NEP, MARA, UITM was the first, and all that, so on and so forth. Fantastic. It should be replicated for all communities. But my issue with the NEP, again, it's very hard for me to sort of split myself from the Malaysian that I am, who believes in free market, who believes in equal opportunity and all that. It set the tone for what is happening today. So that's why I give him a B. Although in policy level, that's why he was a tough one, because policy-wise NEP was so good, man. But
Yeah.
it affects us still today, I feel. I mean, that's why you could argue that's why Malaysia is suffering a brain drain. We are five times the average of the world in terms of brain drain. I think recently there was one doctor who was rejected from local university because he's a non-Malay, went to UK now, he's doing very well, he's a head of department and all that. So I think, those kind of things. But I like him, though, great guy. I was just saying. Fun.
For sure, yeah.
I think for me it's very simple. After World War II, he had to manage the most, I would say, tumultuous period. And we also forget that he had to deal with, I think at that period, I'm not sure how influential communism was, because I think it was towards the tail end of the Vietnam War, so maybe it would have been, but I do know in that era it was a significant threat. So he had a lot of things to balance, and he did what was required, and plus the policies. And I actually think that, there's no doubt we are seeing the effects of that policy, but it was more political rather than economics. Because if you look at economics, we all know it's not the most optimal, but he had to do what he had to do. And I just want to add, because both of us, we are also fond readers of Lee Kuan Yew, right? So if you know, in his memoirs, he has a lot of things to say about various Malay leaders. And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe you've read more about him than I have, but he has never said anything bad about Tun Razak. He said bad stuff about Tunku Abdul Rahman, like he said that Tunku Abdul Rahman soft. He said that Mahathir was not like he was again trying to stir sentiments. He criticized the founder of I think Utusan Melayu. You know, various Malay leaders he critique, but not for Razak. So taking all this into account, I actually put him as A1. So I think he's the best prime minister.
I mean, like Razak definitely was like very bright. And in Lee Kuan Yew's memoirs, actually, he mentioned that Razak, right, was in fact one of the few people in the entirety of London at that time, because like Razak was studying in London, he was a lawyer. He finished his bar exam in an inhuman amount of time, like 1 year. So like the guy was extremely sharp.
Yeah.
And maybe a lot of people also don't know this, but like he was really also Tunku Abdul Rahman's hatchet man, we can say. Like he was kind of like to Lee Kuan Yew, right? Goh Keng Swee. You had also
something like that.
your Tun Razak along the way, basically like carrying out a lot of different things.
There's actually a very tiny story that Lee Kuan Yew shared that when they were, I think, negotiating the separation, they had to sneak in sandwiches during the negotiation because they knew it was going to be a very long and difficult ordeal.
Oh yeah.
He had to sneak in this. I think he needed to bring 2 pairs of singlets because he's going to sweat. So something along that line. Yeah. So I think when I take all this into account, that's
Eden Hall, right?
Yeah, I think I cannot remember that, but
yeah,
I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
So
yeah, and it's definitely important as well. Yeah, I guess I would also like put him at A. Because of partly the NEP, of course, like we might have like questions about that here and there. But also I think that this is just kind of like for information for the public as well about what the NEP is. Of course, a lot of people have like very, very long opinions about it. But, well, 2 main principles. Number 1, elimination of poverty for the entire population, which arguably like did succeed. And then, of course, then you've got the restructuring of society. I think like recognizing that regardless of whatever the situation was at the time, is, I think, an achievement that definitely does need to be recognized for sure. But I would hold off on an S because I guess the record of history is not really completely known to us at the moment. We have heard the story of like this stabilizing and everything out there, but if you read, for example, documents like the May 13 declassified documents, there's speculation. Like, we don't actually know 100% like what happened along the way. But there are assertions, for example, that, well, the entire government was actually in control during this entire time. But it's not something that we really know 100% just yet. I would hold off on giving an S. I would want to give an S, but
yeah,
I think that...
Even on that point, there is a point to support what you're saying because the communists at that time, who were used as sort of like an excuse for May 13 and involvement in Malaysia, at that time they were already retreated into the jungles. They were most of them in Thailand, and what's worse is there was an internal purge that was happening within the Communist Party. They were killing each other. So I'm sorry, I don't see, and in fact, many of those people who are now, they were interviewed, they said, how can we be, involved in May 13 or whatever, when we were killing each other, trying to, to purge the party of traitors and, sleeper cells and all that. So you're right. I mean, there is an assertion there. And if we look, I think there was one recent interview with someone you interviewed, Munira Alatas?
Yeah, Munira Alatas.
She did, I think, I can't remember for who, I think Kini TV, I think. And they sort of brought up the fact about the NOC again. Why was it allowed to go on 2 years without parliamentary, So, it seems like a lot of things were done in that time. So, yeah, I mean, it's an assertion that should be evaluated further.
For sure, yeah. So, because the historical record is not clear yet, I would hold off on an S. Thank you, gentlemen. So now, when we come to Hussein On. All right, amazing.
It is SABCD, right?
Yes, SABCD, that's right, absolutely. Okay. So then, now here we have it. What?
Again, guys, I'm evaluating based on policy. Okay, nothing else. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Oh, policy, very important.
Policy,
very important.
yeah. That's
okay,
all,
great. I might evaluate on vibe though, so like.
Okay, go on.
All right, gentlemen. Hussein On. Gentlemen, 3, 2, 1.
D.
S.
Oh,
S?
B.
Who said on an S?
I said S, yeah.
Huh?
Really? I want to hear why, man. I want to hear why. Who said on? S.
Who said on S, yeah. So we have BB.
You can put multiple names in one grade, lah, if you want.
Multiple.
Yeah.
Okay, so then change mine to C. Sorry, I thought it's one. Sorry, C.
Okay.
Not D.
All
C.
right, cool. Yeah, you can. S, just because of the Bapa Perpaduan thing, and it's partly because I think it's a very important thing for Malaysian society, especially at this juncture. I think that in this day and age with social media and everything, I think that visible polarization has been something that is increasing, I guess. When you go out there and you look at, for example, social media, maybe it depends on the platforms that you're looking at, but I think that at least for me, it's important, I think, that there is this conscious, intentional effort to bring forth national unity. And of course, everybody has different priorities when it comes to deciding what should place a prime minister at a particular place right here. And I would say that for me, at this particular juncture, understanding what I understand about the needs for the nation, I would say that Hussein On would take an S just because of that explicit emphasis on his part. It's very unfortunate that he died quite early. You may recall, if you've read the history, that first Tun Razak passed away and then handed over the reins to Hussein On. But then later on, then Hussein On also died after a short bout. But he very explicitly went out and made clear, right, that we're going to go right ahead and emphasize this national unity thing right there, continuing on with the policies of Razak. So kind of echoing the point earlier that we converge upon. Sometimes having a politician, right, who is not necessarily exciting in a sense of let's go out and let's build 15 more Petronas Twin Towers. That can be good as well. I mean, but of course,
How many? 15?
15 more Petronas
That's
Twin
one
Towers.
too many.
Petronas. What, you're saying 14 should be fine? So
14
we
is fine.
should get
14 is good. For each in one state.
I like that. Okay, interesting. So S, maybe my reasoning is limited, but B, C. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what do you guys think? Why?
Go ahead, man. You go ahead with B, man.
Well, I mean, it's B because he feels like a B student, you know. He there's nothing to complain about him.
But there's nothing.
You know, he's 75 marks, 78 marks. You know.
Okay, you get by, you know.
but like I said, I mean, so I read a bit of American politics as well. So one of my favorite presidents actually Calvin Coolidge back in the 30s. Mm-hmm. And he was the guy who managed the crash before the big crash. There was a crash in 1921, 8 years before the Great Depression. The Great Depression, and his response was very different from Herbert Hoover, which managed the Great Depression, right? Herbert Hoover wanted to do a lot of things, and Calvin Coolidge just say, just relax.
Ride the storm.
Just ride the storm. And I think a lot of leaders like that are required, because change is not always necessary. And in that case, Abdul Razak has already created so much momentum, and your job is to actually stay out of the way.
There you go.
So that's all is required.
The same here. I'm in the same boat. I think he's just an operator. He was a management guy, I think. Management guy. So it's no offense to him, but I just one point. Maybe it's not related or what, I don't know. But it would have been very interesting to see what Malaysia would be today if his father became prime minister.
Of course,
that would have been been a very interesting thing. But he's not taking away anything from him and Hishamuddin, of course. But I just think, like what he said, he's just a manager. So
absolutely.
Yeah, but credit needs to be given, because you can say that he's probably one of the prime ministers, and maybe Badawi as well, that are not so through actions, not so hard up or emphasize their legacy a lot. He's not somebody that I'm trying to have a statue of and things like that.
Correct.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And now we go on to the man who is on the list 2 times right here. And we are going to talk about Mahathir. Gentlemen, Mahathir number 1. 3, 2, 1.
S.
A.
B.
Okay.
What? D? B. Okay.
I would say B1.
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 B1. Oh, okay.
I would say
okay.
S. Yeah.
A B1. All right.
yeah.
B1. Wow. Like we've got like
Multiple
No,
grades.
but I
Yeah.
have to emphasize he's the best in that.
B1.
B++. Yeah.
Okay. A B S. Wow. That's like the initials of that like 3D printing material. All right, gentlemen. Why? B1.
Yeah,
Wow.
B1,
Like
yeah.
B1. That's
So he's better than you're saying he's better than Raman, but not as good as Raza.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
I was torn between A2 and B1, right? Whether he should.
Wait, I
be
didn't
right
know we had
behind-
this numbering system, man.
No, but I have to emphasize.
You made me look like an ass now. I gave Hussein
No,
points.
but you see, if I put Mahathir alongside Raza, people would think that they're the same. Or if I put him alongside Hussein on, people think they're the same. So that's why I made the distinction.
Wow. Okay. Okay, and then we have right over here our B, but you said 1, right? So like
So
doesn't
it's all
mean
the
that.
way at the
Oh,
front, yeah.
I see, I see, I see.
Amazing. Okay, great. And then here, then we have. Oh, this is about Mahathir is. This is nice. This is nice.
Yeah,
Wow,
I
amazing.
am.
Wow, legend. We worship you.
Okay, calm down.
Okay.
Not like that. But no, I think.
All right,
it's
all right.
very
Okay,
good, yeah.
so S.
No, I think he was the prime minister that really pushed Malaysia to the next level, the next frontier, with his mega projects, as I said before, and his vision. And I think he brought up, MJ brought up a very good example of how he's so forward-thinking in the way he was doing things. Of course,
MSc, right?
MSc as well. That's another one as well. I always like this about leaders. I like leaders who make decisions. There's an old saying that say you elect a leader not because they make the right decisions, but because they make decisions. And I think after Tun Mahathir, we have seen many whom are fearful of making decisions, even the controversial ones. They tend to go to what is populist, right? In the time, in fact, Proton, for example, you see, I mean, people were against him. He did it. I think now it contributes, 20 billion. I can't remember what's the number to the GDP and all that. So it's a good, and all the projects that he's been part of, I think it had a long-term plan, long-term vision. And when you go to Putrajaya, when you look at how it's designed, you can see that he had a vision in his mind. You can see even the polls and how you can see that he's a man who wanted something to happen. And yes, he's had failures, like MSc is a failure. Right, let's be honest. Right, Cyberjaya became a home for telemarketing centers, customer service and all that.
Pretty much, yeah.
There was no innovation and all that. So he's had failures, but every leader has failed. But he never backed down, and he kept doing what he wanted to do. And he's a type of politician. He's similar to, I would say, in a smaller scale, I would say Tun Samivelu sort of copied his style, which is he had the ideologies, he had the ideologues with him. He had the managers with him, and he had the enforcers with him. So he controlled everything. And in politics, unfortunately, if you want to be that level, you got to have all three under your table, which is what I think. Again, I don't want to say it, I could be wrong, but it's my personal opinion, humble opinion, that maybe Anoa lacks in that point, where he's not in full control of all three to enact the changes. And like, if you go back to Ops Lalang was one of the biggest things that he did, right? But in the grander scale of things, if you look at it from a politician, I want to control my country, I want to enact my vision, I got to silence the opposition. I mean, from a political strategy standpoint, you got to admire the guy. That's why I showed him this, yeah.
Oh yeah, like he's definitely a very fascinating character. I mean, like he had like extraordinary powers.
Yeah.
If we just think about like challenging Mahathir, like back during the day.
No way.
Can you imagine
I don't think
doing that?
we'd be able to do this back then as well.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah,
That's the
definitely
police
not.
be knocking on the door now.
Hello.
What were you all talking about?
Mr. Vinodh Rajendran.
Yeah,
Broadcast
enough.
Show.
Yeah, enough of your politics.
FIRL?
Yeah.
FIRL? Apa FIRL?
It's crazy, yeah.
Eh, Mama, you apa buat ni? You rasa you boleh cakap pasal tu macam ni?
yeah. Crazy.
Ha? You ingat you siapa? Ha?
No, in fact, when I spoke to one Sabahan politician recently, and he told me, he said one of the reasons why you see Sabah and Sarawak now becoming more and more vocal is because the ISA has been lifted. So yes, the ISA is a draconian law, yes, but sometimes in politics you need that heavy hand. You need the iron that that is political strategy. So I think as a strategist, I think this guy is just different level.
That's true.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Great. Thank you for that. Now, moving on to the successor of Tun, Dr. Mahathir. Kind of hard to follow that up, but Tun Abdullah Ahmad Badawi, ladies and gentlemen, well, there are only gentlemen here.
For those watching.
3, 2, 1, B.
B.
Oh,
B.
this is
Badawi,
Yeah.
Whoa, nice. Wow, like this is the first time we've got
High five. There we go. B,
universal
guys. All B.
consensus.
There we go.
Wow.
I mean, it's Hussein on 2.0 in
Yeah.
a way, right?
Wow, Hussein on 2.0. Okay.
much,
But in
Say
another, just to add to that, I think, yes, he shared that sort of, he wanted to introduce a more liberal, progressive, moderate Islam in Malaysia, right? Which is a good thing.
yeah.
And, but one thing about Badawi, as I said before, I think he should have been given way more time. I think he'd have done a lot of good for the country. But one thing he wanted to do, which we sorely missed today and we are suffering the consequences, is that he wanted to make agriculture into a key pillar of our economy. So if you look at now, 30% of our rice is imported. Why? Doesn't make sense. And if you look at the problems we're having now, our trade surplus is depreciating, is going down. Because why? We are so concentrated on imports, especially food. Why don't we have food security as a country? I don't understand. We have ample land, but we just don't. So I think that part for me puts him, and of course, I love a politician who wants to create development across the country as opposed to focused on, say, Penang, KL, Selangor and all that. That's right. So I think if he had longer time to work, I think he would have been an A for me. But no, unfortunately he short time.
I see, yeah. I would give him a B, but with a caveat though. Because when I put him at a B, like, it's because, well, I think that he had some good ideas, like with the Islam Hadari and also with, well, the human capital development. He brought in a whole bunch of projects related to that. But he faltered along the way, and faltered quite a fair bit to, well, his credit, a little bit. Like, he was capitulating against Mahathir, and like, I don't know, like, we were talking earlier about opposing Mahathir, but like, this guy actually did it. Like, he actually did that right there.
I think he also cancelled some of Mahathir's mega project. I think one of it was a bridge, right, to Singapore? He cancelled that.
The Crooked Bridge, yeah.
Yeah.
And like, even the Singaporean leaders, like, they acknowledge that he was the prime minister who started taking on a more conciliatory tone when dealing with Singapore's leaders, which earns him a B1 in my mind.
but he the thing about him is he's very internal. He was more of one of the prime ministers who focused more on local development. Like, one good example was when Proton was supposedly was to be sold to VW. So VW came in and they wanted to be a strategic shareholder and they wanted to expand our markets, to our more foreign markets. And of course, there was going to be a technological exchange as well between the two. And VW is one of the biggest. And it's not VW, sorry, VAG to be more specific. But he declined. He brought up the fact about, Malaysian nationalism and all that kind of stuff. And then, which was, I think those decisions, I really like. I like, again, I'm more favorable of outward-looking prime ministers. I don't know why. But I like because it growth and all that, right? But that part, I think maybe he was too inward-focused. I think he should have balanced it more with more outward-centric policies as well.
I would just add also to all the good points here is he's a B because he wasn't quite the political strategist that Mahathir.
Yeah, that's true.
He knew how to manage up there, upwards, not just the people. I think, could have been a lot better.
Yeah.
For sure. And here we come to
the infamous.
a controversial individual right here. Gentlemen. No more ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
None of that out there. The testosterone levels in this room are through the roof right here. And you can't even see the roof on the screen at the moment.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sepupus, Najib Raza. 3, 2, 1, B.
A.
Ooh. All right. B.
I say
A.
mine is B2 with a big asterisk here. Very big
If one MDB didn't happen.
Okay, I don't know how to make a big asterisk.
Just
So I'll give you like
asterisk.
I'll give you like two different asterisks. Two asterisks.
That's,
okay.
Actually, that's pretty much it. I think I mean, if you look at the momentum he was creating let's call it 2015, whether it's GST, removing Bumi Putra, or reducing Bumi quotas, And remember, one of the, I would say sometimes you look at Norway and you think, why couldn't we have the fund that they have, right? Because we have oil as well. Okay, yeah, I think Norway has a lot more reserves and all that, but
And they invest their reserves as well.
yeah, they reinvest their reserves. I think Norges Bank owns 1% of global stock market of the entire world, right? And I think Malaysia could have, 0.2, 0.3% of global stock market. I think that's possible, right?
Reasonable, yeah.
But we use Petronas instead for
discretionary stuff.
yeah, there you go. So
Yeah.
or operational expenditure. So one MDB was, I think, that he wanted to create something like that, right? A sovereign wealth fund.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And we all know what happened. But if you judge based purely on his policies, what we could have achieved with GST, I think up to today we have not matched GST's revenue.
No, we have not.
And GST was around for 4 years only.
Yeah,
We still cannot match. I think year number 2, of GST's revenue. So many other things, and he had a fantastic relationship with Singapore. From what I'm hearing, they all loved him. The business community loved him. The company that I mentioned earlier on that does tendering, under him they used to receive their payments in 3 months. Now it's 6 and beyond. So there's a lot of things that he did really well. And one of the things I've been looking forward to from a macro point of view is actually the thawing relationship between Malaysia and Singapore. Because especially now with after Anoa, whoever comes next, whether it's, okay, I used to say Rafizi, but, no more. But let's say the KJ's generation and now in Singapore, Lawrence Wong's generation is the first generation where they have no more baggage of the 60s and 70s because they weren't born back then. And so it's like a new fresh start and people can just work together rationally. But he was doing it, despite not being at that generation. You would expect someone at that generation, Razak's son, to have a little bit more venom towards Singapore, and he didn't. So all these little things, I think if you add up, I would say B2 with an asterisk. If no Jolo, I think maybe even he could have surpassed his dad,
Yeah, I agree. I think he could have been the greatest. I think more even Mahathir as well. But 1MDB really. That's why I say he's a fool to do it. I mean,
I just want to add, the thing with Mahathir is that I didn't quite explain my thoughts earlier on, right? He's a 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of guy. His policies, 2 are great, 1 not so good, right? Yeah. But if you look at Najib, right, there are not many bad policies actually. He's more like a 5 steps forward, maybe 1 step back.
But his criticism was why I put him below Mahathir is because, and let's move up 1MDB now, because you can't have 1MDB in the discussion. If you have it, then you just, he's gone. He's on the list.
Bottom, right?
But his policies, especially in the ETP, was that a lot of things that he did favored a certain group of people. So that was the big criticism against him. His policies promoted inequality, making the rich richer and the poorer kind of thing. So they weren't that widespread. Right. A lot of his cronyism. So, but then again, one could argue that's just a culture that UMNO had for under many prime ministers. You could argue that Mahathir was even guilty of that as well. But I think I agree. I mean, he could have been really something.
But to your point about the concentration of wealth, the tough part is sometimes I put myself in their position, right? And you want just a few key drivers, of the economy. Out putting a lot of power to, for example, Idris Jala and people like that, to be able to get it going, Because I think in a weird way, I mean, in an economy, you have to think of growing the pie and splitting the pie, right? But how do you split the pie if it's just small size or medium size, right? We have to get it big first, and then we think. So suppose you were in, like, the US, for example, then the conversation of income inequality is more relevant because the pie it's the biggest pie in the world, right? Yeah. So there the discussion is to be had. I think in a way, we have to earn the right to discuss about income inequality, and we're not quite there. It may not be music to some people's ears, but look, let's just get rich first, then decide how to
split the pie.
Let's go down the path of Scandinavia, not South Korea. But we have to get there first, right?
But even to be fair, 1MDB could have been something amazing too.
There you go.
I think Singapore has their Temasek Holdings and one more. I forgot. GIC, right? I think 900 billion. That's how big their fund is. Right. Malaysia could have. I mean, houses Singapore can do it and we can't. So it could have been another spectacle. But there we go. There we go.
There's a whole conversation about like the architecture and what Goh Keng Swee did. But speaking of architecture, actually, and I think that this came out actually with Najib, right? When I like really started seeing him talk about economics, and he was really like talking about how like, oh, just because Pakatan wins, and it was a rally, right, like many years ago, like he was saying, oh, just because the Pakatan has won, did your goods end up getting cheaper? Then the answer from the crowd was like, no, right? And like, you can see actually like that sort of economic vision, which is definitely present in like the way that he thinks, the way that he articulates himself. When he thinks about transformation and all of that, I saw
He's
that
very progressive,
as well.
right?
Yeah.
And I know this sounds very weird, but him choosing Jolo as his advisor is one of the most progressive things any PM has ever done. Number one, obviously he's Chinese, right? Number two, he is half his age. So one of the criticisms of any Malaysian government is that there's this deference to people a lot older. You know, I always say, you know, we fight so hard for Undi 18, but I feel we should have one Undi 65. You know, anyone above 65 cannot vote. You know?
Yeah.
You know, because they are fossilized, right? And he picked someone younger and of a different race. But of course, you know, didn't work out. But that initial intention and act proves that he doesn't really care, you know, about your background too much, is whether you're capable or not.
Yeah, and like he
You
was
just cannot analyze capabilities and personalities well.
It's cool. I mean, like he was like recruiting like Ivy Leaguers, like left, right, front, and center. Not saying that Ivy Leaguers are necessarily like the best people to like advise like your economy or anything like that. But thank you, gentlemen. My reasons for picking a B are kind of similar to yours as well, but I want to add in a little bit from Lee Kuan Yew as well, because I know that you're a big fan, and you are as well, as you mentioned. Like he likes strong men.
Yeah, I like strong men, baby.
All right.
Hit me up. If you can bench 100 kgs, call me.
No, but like Lee Kuan Yew in his second memoir, From Third World to First, he mentioned one single factor as being responsible for Singapore's success. He was saying, you know, if I had to choose one word to explain why Singapore became successful, it would be this: confidence. And that's literally something that reshapes, you know, like the way that people think about like your spending decisions, investment decisions, you know, like over what time horizon do I want to spend this money? Like, how am I going to do this right here? Is this a reliable partner right there? And well, yeah, he could have been an S, but well, now he is to be.
It's another what if lah.
What if?
That's the best thing about this list. There's so many what ifs with all of them.
That's the fun of it.
And I think the biggest what ifs for me is with Najib and Raza.
Yeah.
What ifs.
Yeah. Now we come down to the oldest elected prime minister in the entire world, Mahathir Part 2, 7th Prime Minister. Gentlemen, because the testosterone levels have gone up even further. Gentlemen.
What's causing this rise? Calm it down.
3, 2, 1.
D.
C. Wow. Okay, we have like this.
Mine is the lowest C. C right at the bottom.
Again, no one told me about this numbering.
Hey, you can do it now, right? You can always change your answers.
C lowest. Yeah,
lowest,
you can see right there. Like he has.
The C, lower C, yeah.
You know, like,
and it's D, not D because we have to respect
Wow,
the
you
man,
know,
you know.
well, like
He dared
senior
to break.
citizen.
He dared to break his own party, you know.
Oh wow! I thought it was like senior citizen respect.
He's
you
the
know?
real reformer. If you think about it.
And
The
that
real
was
reformer
the
C,
second time that you did it, right? You want to do it?
Okay, interesting. So like, if we just use the Bersih thing right here,
You
that's
guys
like
are making me really look bad. What is this?
50.
Again,
Yeah.
I did not receive this description beforehand.
No, but like this is kind of interesting right here. I mean, like we have right here a C, and then we have the lower C, but like technically that's your only C. So like you know,
So
like
far,
that's
yeah.
fine. But then like you put him at, is that D?
D.
D?
Yes, I put D.
Damn! Wow! Like if we had even lower grades right here, would I have like?
Yeah.
How low would you have gone?
No, I put him in D for one reason again.
Not
I
G.
think that, not G, thank God we don't have or Z maybe. Only reason is because I think during the second term, he didn't really have anything to do. Let's be honest. People were still up in raw about, wow, BN had fallen, and there was just so much noise around that time. And then the Sheraton move happened.
Yeah.
And that's why I put him in D, because whatever. Okay, I don't want to talk about the conspiracies here, but it is my personal opinion that the Sheraton move was not just simply to change government, but to deflate the people's sentiment. And I think the Sheraton move has left a deflated electorate that we see today. That is why you see voter turnouts are lower than ever. So, I mean, not ever, but lower than at least during that time, 2018. So I think all that is so... If I wanted to be, in fact, when I spoke to Roman Bose, I brought this up and I said, could this have been his strategy all along? To not just give power back to the people that he knows, but also to deflate the voters so that you stop them from rising, like what happened, which led to the fall of BN, right? So, I don't know. So that's why I give it. But hey, he's an S in my list, okay? Okay, higher than both of y'all. All right, let's just highlight that part, okay? He's my favorite.
The duality of Tun M.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. If we average him out, then he qualifies as a B.
Fine, whatever, man.
It's a thing. Okay. Yeah. All right, and then we have here like a C, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I think it was his political messaging that went into overdrive, right? He made people in PH felt that he was on your side, and I think everyone felt betrayed, right? So
yeah, absolutely,
as to who is responsible for the Sheraton move and all the things that's going behind the scenes, people are going to pin it on him. Yes, he didn't have enough time, but there's also that whole issue with Anoa and transitioning him into PM and things like that. So people have flashbacks of 1998.
Yeah.
And on the small front, he had this anti-China attitude, which I never quite understood, right? Why did he cancel the f.i.r.l, things like that? So even in that short period of time, the kind of the hope he gave, and then the deflating that happened, I think that's.
But just one thought on that. I want to get your thoughts. Do you think that we cancel all those mega projects with China, right? Because perhaps could it be that there were external influences trying to limit China's presence in the South China Sea?
The thing is, okay, then we are talking about foreign policy here. So I think when you look at the way ASEAN has to deal with, we cannot deal with China the way the US does it, because we are neighbors, right? So the US can make noise and it's fine. So we have to adopt this attitude where we have to be both friendly and but
neutrality,
maintain our maritime claims. Like it was just announced there will be a $3 billion investment by China into I cannot remember. I think it's a lithium-ion battery plant in Malaysia. So we have to play this game of I come invest here, we'll still trade with you, but we are still going to argue that that belongs to us. To the f.i.r.l part, I don't know how much of that is, or maybe he won. He didn't think he would win 2018, but then he realized it's a fragile coalition, so he needed the Malay vote. So maybe if I cancel f.i.r.l,
sentiment,
it could be right, because that's the thing. Maybe after growing so old, the only thing that's left was his political strategic mind,
maybe.
But again, this is just my speculation. But the end results are very odd policies, and there was also a resumption of almost starting to attack Singapore again. That's why he's.
And then also at that time he announced he wanted to do a third national car, which I thought isn't two enough. Why do we need a third one? I thought so. I was a bit. I didn't find that time remarkable,
but I mean, just to tie even in his first term, right? I think if I can summarize Mahathir, is that at the end of the day he's a doctor, and again maybe I'm being a bit pompous by saying this. Doctors are excellent at diagnosis. 50-50 on prognosis. Solution. Sometimes some doctors, every solution is surgery. Like his whole idea of we need proton to absorb unemployment, right? This is a different discussion, but a lot of these policies are question mark. But his analysis on the issue is always on the point, right? You need to win the Malay votes. I've spoken to him before. We soft confront him about his rhetoric. Malay nationalism. He looked at us, he smiled. Well, you know, at the end, we are politicians and we need to win elections. He just said it up front, live.
Yeah.
Life.
That's true, and I like that. I love that about him. That's why I like people like also Sami Velu who can stand up in parliament and say, you know, I'm not scared of you. I love that kind of fist pumping, you know, kind of politician which I don't see nowadays. You know, like because like what you said, that answer is so pragmatic. They are the major voting group. Of course, I'm going to pander to them.
But then you know what? Then he said, but you don't worry. You know, that's why for the Chinese community, every time I go overseas, I see Malaysia is always Chinese community. Why? Because you all got twinning program. That happened under me. You know, so
Yeah, he focused on private development as private
basically
sector.
he gives a lot of benefits to the Chinese and perhaps the Indians as well, but silent.
Silently,
Basically, I give you benefits, but just don't talk about it.
And don't question me about what I do.
Yeah. And to be fair, there are a lot of Chinese who do not question Tun M, right? The MCA guys.
Yeah.
Of course, you have Vincent Tan. He's
Yeah.
never said a bad thing about
Of
him,
course,
right?
because these are the people that, you know,
Yeah.
were part of his group.
But that's the animal, right?
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. But to kind of lead off on this C evaluation, I want to know what you guys make of the whole recent Malay umbrella thing, and then the whole, you know, going out on TikTok and then crying about how he wants to just help the Malays type of thing right there. Like, do you feel that that's like sincere, or do you feel that that's more like political machination? Which
No, he is sincere in that he wants the Malays to rise as a group. That is absolutely sincere. But his rhetoric always make you feel that much more than just that sentiment. But we know throughout history, leaders have to rely on hyperbole, right? In fact, Lee Kuan Yew himself, right, when he was interviewed in the Harvard Kennedy School, I think, someone confronted him. He said, when you were in Malaysia, you, in the Malaysian parliament in 1964, you were arguing for a free press, you were arguing for all these things. But when you get in power in Singapore, suddenly you have all these restrictions and all that. And then his response was, you know, part of being a leader is rhetoric, you know, things like that. So I don't pay too much attention to his rhetoric too much, because I know I know he needs to do that to succeed. B, once he succeeds, I know he's going to dial it down and he's going to dilute a lot. So far, that has been his behavior.
I think, but I think that if you look at it from just strategy point of view, I think it's just PN strategy for the coming GE, because if you look at the narrative coming that is opposing Madani, we don't know, because I have no idea where it's coming from. I mean, obviously we know, but there's no confirmation. But the idea is they want to create this Malay nationalistic spirit. If you've read the book Animal Farm, it's a perfect example, right?
I have. I love it.
You know how after Snowflake dies, and then Napoleon, I think, he keeps bringing up that, you know, the entire sentence, the whole proverb, the slogan is being edited by Snowflake, that he's coming back at night when everyone's asleep and editing things like that, right? And it's all Snowflake. Whatever happens is Snowflake's, although he's dead, he's not there. So this fictional enemy is being created, although that enemy doesn't exist. I keep repeating myself many times. I say, like, look, it's in the Constitution. The Malay rights are enshrined in the Constitution, so nothing can happen to them. Nothing can happen to your rights. You're fine, right? But he's doing this because I think they want to really tug at the heartstrings of the Malay and generate some insecurity among them, so that they vote for PN. So. But on the other side, what they're doing is they are also creating this narrative that Madani doesn't care for the Chinese and Indians. So the next GE, I think what their strategy is that they want the Malays to come out and vote, but they are projecting that a lot of the Chinese and Indians will abstain from voting. So the next elections, the biggest party, the most influential party will be the Parti Tidak Mengundi, that kind of thing, right? So I think that is where he's coming from. I think it's all just about strategy. Because the problem with PN, I think they realize that they cannot bring the Chinese and Indian over to them entirely.
Yeah.
The Chinese are not going to leave DAP for Gerakan. Come on, of course not. And anyway, Gerakan have said that they are a multicultural party. And then the Indians have no option in PN besides maybe DAP on this side. And they also, the past there has always had a weird relationship between the Chinese and Indian voters. So I think this is their strategy. That is why he's doing what he's doing, I think.
And I think what makes it interesting this round is that it seems to be that the Malays are all-time high in terms of division. So if you could split them into three, one would be the religious, one would be the BN gang, and then one would be the liberals, right? Those living in the Bangsa bubble, right? So, and I think one very interesting sign, I don't know what to make of it, is Tunku Zafrul stepping down.
Yes.
So one thing about him is he never loses, as in he was finance minister, and then you would think after smashing BN, right, that he would have no more space, right? He comes back, he is trade minister.
Senator then trade.
In the biggest trade dispute in the past 100 years. So he's on the spotlight, he's the one going to Washington negotiating. And then now, suddenly, the economics affairs post has been vacated. And in a period where the economics affairs suddenly become more important than the finance minister, because that's what Mahathir did. He took a lot of the authorities from the finance minister role to economics affairs, and people are saying he's next in line to replace. So the fact that he, being, I would say, a pretty good, politician, has decided to step down BN, I think it's a very interesting sign,
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And also he sort of improves the appeal of PKR to the elite Malays, which he represents. So that's,
Because he's the he was the one that replaced Najib Raza at CIMB.
Yeah. I hate him for one thing, the way he buys books, because I like to read. So my favorite bookshop is Kinokuniya, and there was a video of him recently. He buys books in Kinokuniya, like, you buy books from like Book Access
Without
or
discount.
Yeah, he just goes there with I like this book. I say, what the hell, man? This is CIMB salary that's helping you. Look at that.
All right, gentlemen, we're talking up to PMX, not PM 12, 13, 14, 15 right here. So, Mahathir, C, and for me, at least personally, it's going to be related to this next entry that we have here because of the whole, strategizing even in his coalition. Didn't expect to win, like Roman Bowes writing about, how, there was this plotting going on right here, Bersatu, Muhyiddin, and then here, there, and everywhere. And now we get over to Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin.
Okay.
So now we go down to a 3, a 2, a 1, and a D.
The last. The last.
C, I got C. Yeah.
Bottom.
Man, I think we've only been on the same page on one. Right? Who was that? Ismail Sabri, is it? No. We all said B. Who was that?
Who is that? Well,
Badawi.
Badawi. Right.
Yeah.
We were all on the same page there. Yeah. But if you think about it, I mean, like here we have like a D last, and then like now we have a C. But in this case right here, we had the Mahathir here, but like now, you're just casually showcasing that you are maybe a more lenient grader than you might suggest right here.
Let me explain why. Let me explain why I say C. Although I think he had the same term that I guess nothing much. He unveiled the budget, right? Budget, one of the biggest budgets we've had, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, but that was a sort of like a COVID stimulus anyway. But having spoken to people who work very, very closely with him, I give him a C because that's his style. He's the kind of leader. What he tells his team is that we must trust the people we elect. So if he appoints you in that position, he doesn't really interfere, but he lets you do your thing. So I think I like leaders like that. I think that's very good quality to have as a CEO and all that. So that's why I give him a C. Yeah. So I think his ineffectiveness is not a result of lack of action, but just his style, I think.
I see.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I give him a D because, emergency proclamation, but also having one of the most bloated cabinets in the entirety of Malaysian history. I think he had like more than 100 different people in his cabinet, just hanging out and just doing different things here, there, and everywhere. And of course, then you've got the whole Jana Wibawa scandal, for which even now, he's got his passport just basically impounded, can't leave the country. Then a whole bunch of people talking about menantu abah kau or any number of other things out there. I don't know how much Malay social media you guys read, but it's it's fun. Yeah, but I mean, like, it's not G because at the very least, he didn't ban becoming Hannah. Like, I don't know if you remember that, but like Hannah Yo's book. Yeah. Like that wasn't like banned during that time, right? There, even though it was technically a past government alongside like what you have with like Bersatu and the rest of PN along the way. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I have to admit, but during him and Ismail Sabri's time, I paid the least attention to politics. I think partly because they focus so much on the Malay cause that you just lose me, right? I did not understand what actually happened, any notable events apart from the ones that you mentioned, which were all negative. So, and of course, it's still, it's also because they started his spin-off Bersatu, right, from BN, and Bersatu is that more Malay kind of party.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of politics that we need to leave behind, right? In a weird way, PAS is more progressive than what they did because PAS used to work with DAP at least, so you know they can, they're pragmatic sometimes, right? So I think it's the same. They are very similar to Hussein On and Abdullah Badawi, but like the other side of the coin,
the dark side.
Yeah, for them, there was Hussein On and Badawi was, business as usual, but with some positive spurts. Interesting policies. This one is business as usual, but negative. So.
Yep. All right, thank you for that. Moving on to Ismail Sabri, Bersih A grade holder, appreciator.
I question Bersih's analytical skills.
Well, I mean, like, to be fair, like a lot of people do. I mean, sorry.
A grade, are you kidding?
Sorry, Bersih. But yeah, so like here we have Ismail Sabri, appreciator of fancy shirts, and also Prime Minister
fancy watches too, don't forget.
Ooh, yeah, that's right. That's great for fashion taste. No. All right, gentlemen. 3, 2, 1, C.
D.
Ooh. Okay, interesting. Well, that's nice.
I think the same thing what you said for, I'm going to say the same thing as well. It's just...
It just automatically populated last right here.
Ini
macam, yeah.
Okay, you were the Prime Minister, right?
Okay, you were the Prime Minister.
What did you do? I mean,
well,
no, and again, it's not a knock at him as a person, but it's just too short a tenure. And if I ask you now, how, I mean, if you talk about Mahathir, Razak, Tun Razak, Tun Rahman, you could sort of attach a messaging or a brand to them. What brand can you attach to Dato Sri Ismail Sabri? You can't.
Burberry.
But I do rate him higher than Tan Sri Muhyiddin.
Okay, yes, you do.
Yeah.
Fine, whatever, man.
Because
Muhyiddin lover. I don't know, Sabri lover.
Because again, purely based on feeling, I just feel more comfortable with.
More comfortable. I see. Yep. We all make that. Yeah. Like.
And if you just, I don't know, maybe I'm just judging the face.
Yeah.
Ismail Sabri feels more trustable.
Ismail Sabri looks more trustable.
Yeah.
I feel interesting.
Obviously.
Yeah,
when you wear Burberry shirts, I mean, it makes you trustable immediately.
Yeah. I mean, like,
he feels like more like the grandfather. Not.
But I mean, like, well, Muhyiddin, like, they do call him like Abba.
Yeah, but I think he's the real.
But you're saying that like this is the true
he's
Abba.
the correct Abba. Yeah.
He's the more stylish Abba. He's a man with style.
That's right. Wow, that is absolutely a thing. Okay, great. Moving on.
This is the hardest one, right? I think.
Yeah, while I'm looking at the last year, I'm like, what number?
Well, I mean, here we have like PMX, and of course, like, like a lot of people have lots of different opinions. I mean, we have come a long way ever since his imprisonment after Reformasi, September 20th, leading up until the present day right here. A full 2 years and some change ever since he signed that fateful document, basically affirming, oops, you'll be the 10th Prime Minister of Malaysia. We have Anwar Ibrahim, the one, the only, the Prime Minister of Malaysia. And now it comes 3, 2, 1. B.
B, yeah. I'll go B, yeah. B.
Consensus.
Soft B, very soft.
Yeah, finally we ended on a consensus. Perfect, I like that. There we go. Satu Malaysia.
Kita satu bangsa, kita satu negara, kita satu matlamat. Oh, 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 oh. But anyway, I think that was actually during Najib's time. But anyway.
Hey, whose one is this?
Sorry?
Is this yours?
No, that's MJ's.
This is mine, yeah.
So you have nobody on S?
Yes,
No.
nobody on S.
No.
Yes, nobody on
I'm
S.
the top grader?
I mean, for MJ, he just has like this whole wall right here. He has like the B wall.
He
you know what I
hasn't
mean?
seen the S yet.
Yeah, he has not seen the S just yet. Yeah, it's almost like
Could have been Najib, you know. Could have been.
Could have been. Yeah, could have been.
Najib, yeah, but
Yeah.
It's almost like that one national honor that is not given out.
Well,
to anybody.
basically, the S for me, the theoretical S, right? This is like This is like yeah. So it needs to be somebody with the Mahathir's political strategy, politicking, judgment of people, and then maybe Najib's policies. Whoever comes on with that, I think that would be the S.
Okay.
Yeah, you see, because like in Singapore, all you have to find is the person with the best policy, because political opposition has pretty much, it's not a threat.
Okay.
Anymore.
Fair enough.
So there's no need for politicking. That's why if you look at Singaporean politicians, they are basically all, A student, a bit nerdy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They speak, like rhetoric is not important because, Lee Kuan Yew has destroyed the opposition and it's a clear path. And so they purely focus on their technical expertise and the correct surgical policies.
I see.
But we cannot afford that as Malaysia. We need like a Napoleon-like figure that can manage politics, but no policy as well.
That's true.
Very hard, but you're not there yet.
And here we are today. In Malaysia, you have this whole legacy of different communities, politicking, legacy. 70 years, as you mentioned earlier, of certain policies that were handed down. And here we have Anwar Ibrahim, just a couple of years. How many months until the next GE? It's pretty
3 more
soon,
years,
right?
I think.
No,
Two
Two more years, yeah. It's
2.5. something like that.
2027.
yeah, 2 years and some change coming on.
I don't know if you all agree. I saw this tweet that day. Anwar is our Obama. I don't know.
Really? I was going to say
He's
Kamala
good.
Harris.
He's good with speeches.
Orator,
his esteem. He champions social justice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Posters.
You could see the code. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can see it now. Yeah.
I mean, gives speeches, but very unpopular with the Malays.
No, I think I chose him as a B because number one, if I can say Ahmad Badawi is a B, then I think he should be there at least. But I also think that he's done some things. I mean, if you look at his energy transformation plan,
right?
roadmap and all that. He's doing things, he wants to become net zero by 2030, I think 2030 or 20, I can't remember what's the number when. So they are doing things there. Development wise, I mean, I think he's unable to do the mega projects, the shiny, sexy projects because our fiscal health. So I put him in B because I do sympathize with him a lot. I do, because I think he's not been allowed even, okay, forget the fact that he doesn't have the mandate, but he's not been allowed that space to do things. I think he's operating against an opposition that is just going to, whatever it is, even if there's the smell of something, they'll just grab it and, oh, this is bad. And then the people get confused and nobody's evaluating it also on a wholesome level. SST is one good example of it. I would like to ask the opposition, okay, if you don't like the SST, then what? What do we do? What do we do for short-term gains in terms of improving because nobody talks about how your debt should be a certain percentage of your GDP. So he has to keep things in check. I mean, so I just sympathize with him, and I think we should be giving him more room.
But how do we all feel about the whole Rafizi thing? I think a lot of people were very excited, right, that he come on, because finally we have a technocrat, right, coming on to contribute more into the government, and now he stepped down after 2 years.
I am in complete disagreement with the choices of Nick Nazmi and Rafizi to resign, because I think politicians in Malaysia need to really wake up and smell the coffee. The people voted for you to become an MP. You have the people's mandate.
Yeah.
You were elected then in government to hold power as a minister. You cannot then cop out and say, oh, but I don't have the party's mandate. The party's mandate does not equal the people's mandate. So I'm sorry, you can't tell me that, oh, I'm the Minister of Economy, and during the time when we are walking into very cloudy waters, very choppy seas, right? Then you say, oh, sorry, I'm going to resign because I don't have my party's mandate. I think that really, and then not only that, after that, Rafizi goes on now, he's talking about this, talking about that. I think you should have some class. I think you should say, okay, I've resigned, I'm going to keep quiet and not say anything. And then later on, maybe after 100 days, maybe after 1 year, you come back and you talk. But what he's doing is not right. Nick Nazmi is not doing that. Nick, I interviewed him, right? He's quiet. He's going to go his own thing. He's not interfering. But Rafizi's, I don't know what's his end game. I don't know what's, and I'm very disappointed with these two people. And Rafizi, the problem with him is, yes, he's a technocrat, but he needs to work on his people relations. He's one of those leaders who just cannot connect with the people. Many people say that he's arrogant.
He's the classic high IQ but low EQ.
Low EQ, yes. And but for me, I just have that one point of, you should not have resigned. You should not. You cannot go on stage and say, if you all don't vote for me in these elections, I'm going to resign as Minister of Economy. Hey, what about the tariffs? What about, do your job, man. So I think that part really, that part really was a big sound.
Point of clarification, because isn't it the case that you run for the election, so the order would be you run for election, you win the seat as part of the party, then later after being elected as an MP, then the Prime Minister appoints you. Is that
correct.
How that works?
That's correct.
So then in that sense, then he wouldn't have been elected as a minister.
Correct. But the issue here is what in most parties now, they have a party hierarchy.
Sure.
So because he was the night president, so that's why he's front to become minister. That's why recently when the issue of, they were saying that KJ may become Minister of Economy, but then there was a counter argument that saying that no, there are far more senior people in UMNO waiting, so he cannot be the minister because he cannot go against party hierarchy. But we have to ask ourselves a key question: what does party hierarchy have? Can you compare it with the people's mandate? We are at the end of the day, we are in a democracy, and if you were given that task, stay there. But he left. I'm guessing there are other backdoor issues that happened, but I don't think he should have left. I don't think he should have left.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Formula.
All right, cool. So yeah, the Anwar administration, I would say good luck, Dato' Sri. It's probably, and I completely agree with you that I sympathize. It's going to be a hard time for him in the years going ahead with the opposition, with lots of other things. And regardless of our opinions, on Anwar, I would say, I think as Malaysians, I think we can probably agree that we do want this country to succeed. You want this country to succeed,
definitely,
right?
Yeah.
Of course.
Thanks for exempting the apples and oranges.
Thank you. Because apparently that's a B40 food.
Yeah.
I don't know, how do you label it a B40 food? That's so insulting.
Whoa.
Hey, can we label blueberry, strawberry?
Yeah, it's T20.
Whoa.
But B40 don't eat avocado. I never got that. How do you evaluate food? Do you do a focus group or?
No, it's almost everyone can debate. The one thing everyone agrees on is that avocado is T20.
T20. It's like they went to certain areas. They just put a bowl of fruit and then they came back the next day. This food is left here, so nobody eats this here. I don't get it, man. How do you grade food based on income groups? It just don't get it.
Yeah, maybe we should do a tier list one day featuring different foods kind of thing.
Yeah.
This one
and you know, the funny thing now on social media, you see every opposition leader holding different types of food and saying, rakyat yang ada IC biru, harga burger Ramly akan naik, harga biskut akan naik. I'm like, oh, enough, man. Enough.
Well, since we're on that topic, our man here, our imaginary the one that could be right here was once, talking about the chosen one, kangkong. That's right, eat your kangkong. Eat your kangkong is good for you, Sepupus.
Yeah, eat your kangkong.
I think people get really pissed when cost of living issues go up and then they say, well, have one less egg.
Yeah. That was Rafizi, right? Was that Rafizi?
No, I feel a lot of people do it. Even Singaporean politicians will do it,
Yeah. Oh, don't eat that.
You can't eat chicken, just eat one wing or just eat one.
Yeah.
Is that Josephine Teo? Yeah, I can't remember.
Something like that.
And I don't know why this issue of apple oranges is there, right? We're seeing SST go up, but then they said that, local fruits will be protected, like pisang berangan and all this kind of thing.
Okay.
And then Anoa comes up with the answer that now all government events, only local fruits.
Then he said because in Cambodia they do it the local way.
Why don't you do policies like let's now focus on growing our local domestic industry? No. All events, local food only. I don't get it, man.
There are some things which he has to work on.
Yeah, some things, yeah. Like for instance, do you know, fun fact, mango is actually not a Malaysian fruit. It never grew in Malaysia.
It's from Pakistan, right?
It's from India.
Pakistan.
India,
Yeah, it was taken here by the British. So should that be taxed?
Well, apparently our rubber is also not from here. It's from Brazil.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the British
originally.
took from Brazil and planted here.
Oh, so I guess you got to tax that too.
There we go.
There we go, yeah.
And so, gentlemen, thank you so much. We have here 3 different tier lists reflecting.
Okay, wait, I have one question. Can I ask one question?
Go ahead.
Can I start? I want both your answers, right?
Yeah,
Can I start with you? With this, both your answer. Which of the politicians of the past that you feel would have done a great job as the PM?
There is not a PM.
No, there's never been a PM, but was from the past or present, whatever, whichever timeline.
Wow. Somebody who could have been. I have to think about that.
This is based on what I hear from the old guys. Who is Mahathir's opponent in the 80s? Was it Tun Razak?
Tun Razak, yeah.
Yeah, Hamza.
So maybe
Hindi.
that's one. Of course, on Jafar. In recent memory, look, we have to say Kyrie, right?
Yeah, we have to say Kyrie.
We do,
yeah,
right?
Kyrie.
And I'm gonna cop out here by like echoing you on that front right here.
I think it's the same names, but I think it'd be interesting to see Azmin Ali. I think Azmin was another one that was a casualty of the Sheraton move. But yeah, he's another one I think could have been a great Prime Minister. Another one is Tun Dr. Ismail. That's another guy.
Yeah,
Another one.
Yeah.
Interesting guy. Should
I
have
mean,
been
like he was
the
one
reluctant
of the
politician.
No, the thing he was third in command. That's the thing. Right?
Yeah.
He was, yeah.
So
And he was like one of the favorites of like the Singaporeans as well. I mean, like Lee Kuan Yew famously said that he was, one of the Malaysian politicians that he had nothing bad to say about. Yeah, and
I think they say he was the only politician that Pandit Tun Mahathir was afraid of. That's what I heard. I saw in some documentary or something. Yeah. So interesting.
that would have been very interesting.
But okay, just one more.
What's up?
If KJ became Prime Minister, what do you all think would happen?
Ooh. So the good one, I mean, 2 ways, right? The good one, the best case is that he's able to, because he's Oxford grad, right? So he's able to speak the language of policymakers. But he's also politically connected, so he presumably will be acceptable to the aristocrats. And I think because of the podcast, he also now has he has a good connection with the rakyat. So the best case is that he's able to balance all this well, and he becomes what Najib could have been. He takes on Najib's policies and just makes minor improvements here and there.
Yeah, I agree.
The worst case is that he loses touch with the
people.
average Malay, especially.
For sure.
So then we will have the same problems again. Yeah.
And this is more like a sort of aspirational thing. People learn a lot from the leaders that they emulate. I mean, like, when it comes to even children with parents, for example, right? Like, we follow what people do, right? Not necessarily what they say. So, like, when we go to, for example, like, Pendidikan Moral class, you all did Pendidikan Moral, right?
Yes, we did.
Pendidikan Moral. Pendidikan
AKA
Moral.
Pondeng. Civics. Shout out to Civics. Our extended rehat.
Yeah, so I mean, like, we can do 100 different Pendidikan moral lessons. We can have like a whole 5 million Lina Sidex coming up.
By the
to
way,
us
you
and
know,
saying,
I just found out they increased
Yeah.
from 36 to 41 now. I think there's 41 or 42 nilai.
oh my gosh.
Oh wow!
From
What are the other 5?
Wow.
I don't know.
You can
I
become
only use rationale, Sederhana, that's it. You know.
I always thought that even 36 was way too many. Like, it's 41. Wow.
There's a lot of overlap, I see.
Good Castro dan f.i.r.l mengamalkan sikap amanah yang dapat menimbulkan kepercayaan orang lain. Or
Yes.
I don't know. Like I'm sorry. Like I only got A- Yeah, but like I think that like the mere fact, right, that you have this sort of like engagement out there, I think that having him as a leader would really set a tone really for like people. I mean, like, I think that one of the things that we see really in modern age, right, is that when people look at Anwar, they look at through the whole lens of perceptions, right? Like somebody that they see as, he has like this scandal, that scandal, you're not sure what to believe right there. But I think like with KJ, it's clear, like what he says, what he speaks about, it's something that you can easily and engagingly, for that matter, like go back and look at just because of his podcast along the way. So one thing I would hope for is that like, more people would have it as a sort of seed inside them to like develop themselves further. I think I said this also in my podcast with you. I think that more people just need to be more like aware, like you can't rely on the government all the way right there. Of course, whether that man's vision, if it were to come to life, or even if he were to jump through the different hoops that would stop him from being prime minister, I think that's the challenge of like, human nature, like would people actually follow along with that? I don't know the answer to that, but I think that at the very least, if he were in that situation, then that would be something possible for the people to look up to as a role model, which is something I'm very much looking forward to. And so with that, then shall we?
Yep.
All right.
All right.
So, gentlemen, we have right here, 3 different tier lists, different perspectives, ideas. And of course, then, what do you think? Like you've got your little link down there, so make sure to go right ahead and vote on the tier list. And we're very interested to see how you all decide on who are your S, A, B, C, D tier prime ministers along the way. And with that, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
An absolute honor. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
All right. Cheers.
All right.
Thank you.